This time the quick speed shop, I'm starting to reassemble the front suspension on the Model A hot rod shop truck. Okay, here we go. I'm taking a break from Project Green Machine F250 because it's been super hot out, like 90 degrees and humid, so I'm working in here where it's cooler in the garage. And I've had some time to make some progress here on the Model A hot rod shop truck. Here's the radius rods here. I've painted them with the same chassis black that I painted everything else with. And I've gone ahead and I've removed the front spring hanger that was on. This is a 37 to 41 style wishbone, radius rod wishbone. I went and I removed the spring hanger which used to be out front here. I was going to use that for a shock mount like I did on my Model A hot rod coupe. But I decided I'm going to add a shock mount back here somewhere, but I'm not sure where that's going to lay out yet. So I went ahead and painted everything. I'll just grind the paint off here and weld the pieces on that I need and then touch it back up. So first thing we're going to do is, oops, I grabbed the driver's side one. This one goes over here. I'll set this aside. I've got my mount down here, which I've has a tapered piece for the 7-degree fitting on here on the forward tie rod end. Let's stick it into the bracket. Oh, hold on. Gotta put the dust boot on first. Don't forget the dust boot. And before I got these out, I stood them on end and I lined up the tie rod ends so they're the same length. So they should be pretty close to square up here when we get to measuring. But I'll go ahead and throw this on here. It's kind of tight quarters. I brought a bunch of stuff home from my dad's shop back home and I've thrown it here under the bottom of the truck and it's kind of in the way. That's alright, we'll work around it. And I wish I'd got the boot for this side. I gotta go get that now. Okay, those are roughly fitted up. Next thing I gotta do is gotta get out the spring perches that go through the axle and through the radius rods, and they'll attach the axle to the radius rods. I'll go ahead and I'll get those and we'll zoom in and pan down for the action. All right, here's the perch bolt here. It's part of the swivel perch here where the bolt, the axle is supposed to pivot this way by having the swivel perch instead of a stock forward perch, which is all fixed one piece. So I've put some all anti-seize on here on the shaft and back the nut off here. I'm just gonna kind of bojangle this into place, get that started, and get the other side going here. But I want to check the clearance of the wishbone to the axles. I've got a little bit of gap between the wishbone surface and the axle down here. I want to put a little shim in. Pick this up, maybe you can see it. There's a gap under here. I want to put a little shim. Actually, it's up here now because I picked it up, but I want to shim this. Ow, it's heavy. Right, you can see it better here under the lower part of the axle. There's about a, I don't know, a 1/16 gap or so, and this will draw down a little bit, but it won't really squeeze down all the way. So I'm going to put a couple of shim washers in here to take up some of this gap and then tighten this thing down. So I think I got the same gap on both sides. So let me get some spring washers or shim washers, and then we'll tighten down the perches, and then this bolt here on the shackle. Hope you can't see me. After I put the shim in on the bottom here, then the shackle here, the top of the spring perch, goes on the shaft of the shackle. So I'll fight this in one piece at a time. But let me go ahead and get those washers put in here first. Alright, I got my spacer in down here. I used a 16-inch spacer and that's snugging up real nice. I put some pink wheel bearing grease into the pivot points down here and on the pivot of the nut on the bottom to keep things lubricated. I've also gone ahead and put some on the shackle pivot bolt here. So the next thing I'm going to do is take the nylock nut off that, and I believe this will go into here. Might fight me a little bit. I gotta kind of line it up. Yeah. Get grease everywhere. Alright, so I just had screwed the tie rod ends back here just to get a rough measurement. And my shackle bolt, pivot bolt, is behind the spring pivot part of it by like 1/4 of an inch. So I've got to take and shorten up these radius rods to pull the top of the axle backwards so this will line up. Right now the axle is a little bit too far forward. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this back out and go equal turns in. Probably go like two rotations in maybe and see what that does. 2 rotations. Just pull that in for now, see what that did. Well, that got me just about where I want to be. Yeah, it's looking pretty good by the time this pulls out here. That looks pretty good. What, 2 rotations there. Let me do the same thing on the other side. I've got to go ahead and try to get this into here. Might be able to pick up on it. Aha, there we go. Just got to get it enough to get a... Don't lose the nut. Ah. Get some thread action here. I'll just go a couple threads there to hold it so I got some room to maneuver. Over here, do the same thing on this side. Here we go, we got both started. Now I can run these nuts down and it'll drag the shackles right into place where we gotta be. I'm going to clean this all up and retouch up the paint on this hardware. All the paint's getting scratched. Retouch everything up nice. Clean all the grease off all the surfaces. Ooh, it's getting humid in here. Alright, the shackles are pretty much laid out because there's no weight on this here now. But when we put the engine in, it'll squat down a little bit. That pretty much does it. The next thing I want to do, I want to take some measurements. I'm going to measure from like the kingpin here back to triangulate this and make sure the front axle isn't skew jaw in the truck. And I got the rear axle mounted so I can measure corner to corner. So I'll do some measurement there. And if I have to make an adjustment with the tie rod end on the back of the wishbone radius rods, I can do that, but it should be pretty close because it was close when I built this. I'm just putting it back together, so things should be dialed in pretty good. I'll go ahead and I'll make some measurements. So that pretty much wraps up putting the front suspension together. Like I said here, I'm going to have to, you can see how the steering arm hits the axle here. I think you might be able to see that. Well, when you have a drop axle, the stock steering arms hit the axle, and the tie rod end will also hit the radius rods up here in the front. So this is just a stock set of used spindles, 37 to 41 round back spindles that I have on here. And I have a nice set that I'm going to put new bushings in. So I've got to get the torch out. In a future video, we're going to go heat up the steering arm and bend it down and bend it back up to essentially drop the steering arm down below the axle and below the tie rod, or below the radius rod, for the tie rods to clear. But for now, I've just got a homemade tie rod on here just so I can steer this and get it rolling again. So I wanted to do this, and I want to put the rear suspension, put the axles back in so I can get this down on 4 wheels and then set the engine back in it and then have this be a rolling chassis again. So I'll go ahead and I'll dial in my measurements and get this thing straightened out here. I'm going to measure from the rear end tube. We got 112 and 3/4. We got 112 and 16. So this side is brought back 1/16 of an inch. I've got to go ahead and check some other measurements, but if it's truly off 1/16 of an inch, I'm going to wait and put some weight on it and get this thing kind of sprung around before I make the final adjustments in the axle here, because right now it's kind of sprung and all over the place. So I'll get the weight in it, bounce it up and down, steer it around a little bit, and then I'll readjust this and get my measurements dialed in exactly on the alignment of the front axle. Alright, so bam, that's it. I just want to take I had a little bit of time here tonight to put the front suspension back together on this thing, and I want to get the wheels on it so I can make it a roller, dump the engine back in it, and then clean this up so I can have this thing rolling again, so I can use this front bay at the quick speed shop. And it's humid as crap outside, so a little nicer working in here tonight. So I guess that's it for now. I'll continue on, put the front wheels on, and I'll get the engine slapped back in this thing, and we'll go from there. So as always, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm putting out new videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Hit the bell for alerts, tell your friends, and as always, we'll see you right back here at the Quick Speed Shop for more hot rod shop truck action and whatever else I got going on. We'll see you later.